Miss Laura, you testified, I believe, that you and Shawn Grate met or kind of came together maybe in July of 2016. Would that be fair?
Yes.
All right. And basically, I think you and he were walking along the street, maybe going to the Kroc Center, and that's how you first met.
Yes.
All right. And after that period of time, did you have the occasion to take several walks with Shawn Grate?
Yes.
And also played tennis, I believe you testified?
Yes.
A few times with him?
Yes.
So you spent an amount of time with him from the time you met up until the time that the events happened that you've explained here,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
Was it every day, every other day, or would you see, how often would you see one another?
2, maybe 3 times a week.
Beg your pardon?
2, maybe 3 times a week.
2 to 3 times a week? All right. And would that end up being a walking type of thing, or maybe having dinner or lunch at the Kroc Center and then going for a walk and maybe playing tennis?
Yes.
Okay. During that period of time when you were playing tennis or taking your walks with Shawn, what was his demeanor generally?
He was very courteous, usually. Sometimes he would get like immature, just, I don't know.
Immature?
Yes.
All right. How would he be getting immature, would you say?
I don't know, maybe making stupid jokes or something.
All right. Stupid jokes that you didn't appreciate?
Yeah.
Or weren't involved in, kind of thing?
Yeah.
I think you described him as something like a brother.
Yes.
Was he respectful of you?
Yes.
Okay. In one of these walks, I think, was out to this fort that he had made. He showed that to you?
Yes.
And that was quite a long journey.
Yes.
Was that during the daytime?
Yes.
And did you get back before nighttime?
Well, a storm, like a heavy storm, just opened up, and as we're walking along the road, somebody just stopped and asked, "Do you need a lift?"
All right, so you and Shawn got a lift coming back from the
Yes.
fort. Well, was this kind of a secluded area that you went to where this fort was?
Just when it got off the road, which wasn't very deep.
Well, was it wooded like? Mm-hmm. Okay. And was there any problem between you and he as you went to this fort and he showed you around and you're back in this area in the woods?
Not at all. No problem.
Okay. So we go to, I think the date was September the 11th, and it was the evening of September the 11th of 2016 when these events started that you've described, right?
Yes.
Now, there were times when he would come to your house and you would make him stay outside, or you ask him to stay outside?
Probably at first, but he just always knew to then too.
He did what?
At first, I had, I told him my boundaries, and then after that, he just always knew that.
He respected your boundaries.
Yeah,
did he
I
not?
think maybe on an occasion or two, I did have to remind him, take your foot outside the door.
Take your what outside?
Foot outside the threshold of my door. Yeah.
All right, he kind of stepped inside.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, try to see, almost like a child, to try to see if I was maintaining my boundary.
All right, and he respected that, did he not?
Yes.
Okay. Was he always calm in his demeanor around you?
Yes.
Easygoing?
Yep.
Okay. So we go to September the 11th, and you've described different things, but at one point in time before these events on September the 11th, he asked you for a Bible, right?
Yes.
Was that same day, or was that another day previous to September the 11th?
I don't know if I could be sure about that. I don't know.
Well, what did you think when, had you talked about the Bible and religion before he came up with that
Oh
request?
yes, from day one we always were talking about the Bible.
About what?
From day one, we would always talk about the Bible.
Okay. And religion, or just Bible?
The Bible.
Okay. You would talk with him, he would respond to you. Mm-hmm. Did he have Bible verses that he would quote to you during this period of time?
Maybe some vague, more like notions or ideas.
Mm-hmm. And would you quote Bible verses to him while you were discussing the Bible?
Yes.
And how did he respond to that?
He'd find it interesting. He'd think about it, and
He
he'd agree with it, and yeah.
found it interesting, you
Yes.
said? Okay. And was that a lot of your discussions, that you took these walks, and maybe some walks for 2 or 3 hours at a stretch?
The majority of it, yep. The majority of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You had been to his apartment, or his living quarters, I guess we'll call it that, on one other occasion. I think you said before September 11th, or maybe 2 other occasions.
Yes, yeah.
And I think one time, or maybe the first time you indicated you were there was another individual in your, well, it was you and Shawn.
Yes.
Okay. And was there another time that you went by yourself, or you went with Shawn to his apartment?
I can't recall.
All right. So we would say the second time maybe, or the third time probably, maybe at the most, was September the 11th of 2016.
Yes.
And was it during the daylight hours, or evening, or
Always.
nighttime?
It was always during daylight.
Daylight?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I think you indicated you had made peanut butter sandwiches before you left your house.
Yes.
And you carried those with you.
No. He carried the things I was giving him with him.
You carried what?
The food and the Bible with him.
Right. But you made the sandwiches for you and for Shawn, did you not?
Yeah, and we ate it before we left.
Well, you ate at your place?
Yes.
So outside?
He ate outside, I ate inside.
Okay. Did you ever sit down and eat together?
Over at the Croc Center.
Several times?
Yes.
But at your home, you stayed inside and ate, and he stayed outside and ate?
Yes.
Per your boundary instruction, right?
And it felt uncomfortable. Yeah, I think it felt uncomfortable when it was just me and him eating.
You felt more comfortable when?
I think that's just why, sorry, what was the question?
Well, when you were eating your sandwiches, you ate those at your apartment before you left.
Correct.
You stayed inside to eat.
Yes.
He stayed outside to
Yes.
eat. What made you not want to go into his apartment?
The same reasons. I just don't like to be alone with the opposite sex.
Well, when you went to Shawn's house on September the 11th from your apartment, you went into his. I call an apartment a house, okay? You went into his house, did you not?
Yes.
Voluntarily?
Yes.
Were there any boundary restrictions?
It was just such a quick thing, and I really just saw him as a brother that the barrier just kind of wasn't, I just felt, I don't know, he felt more like of a brother to me at that time.
He felt like more like a brother to you, okay. But you went in with him?
Right.
Freely?
Right.
Voluntarily?
Yep.
All right. And as you went into his residence, what was his demeanor? Like he had always been, or were things starting to change, or
Nope, like he's always been. Like we were just there.
like the Shawn that you always had known up to that point in time?
Like he always been, yep.
All right. But once inside his residence on September the 11th, the late afternoon or early evening, whatever time it was, his demeanor started to change then.
Just abruptly. Abruptly.
Okay.
Suddenly,
Quickly,
yes.
Quickly, in other words, okay.
Yes.
All right. Did that surprise you?
Yep,
All right. Did it scare you?
yep.
All right. Did you leave his residence?
I tried.
What happened?
A fight ensued.
You had a fight with him.
Right.
All right. So now he's changed, right?
Yep.
From what you had known him to be.
Physically, yep.
All right. After all the walks and the contact and the playing tennis and so forth, it changed.
Yep.
Okay. You indicated something in your direct examination that you testified about your version of the events that went on in his residence at the night of September the 11th, 2016, correct?
What's the question?
You described the events of what went on after he changed once you're inside his residence on September the 11th.
Did I?
You had, in your earlier testimony, you described what went on there.
To the nurse, to,
He had assaulted you, you testified, sexually,
yep,
physically.
yep.
All right. You indicated that the first night that you were there 2 nights exactly, correct?
Yes.
The first night you were there that Shawn didn't sleep much. These assaults were going on or off and on, if I understood your testimony.
I don't know how well he slept. I don't know.
What?
I don't know how well he slept. I don't know what.
All right. Well, you'd indicated in direct examination, I think, that he didn't sleep much the first night.
Right, he was on edge. I mean,
Right. Okay. The second night you were talking about, and your words were that you were describing that he slept better.
he slept. He went to bed a lot later than I did, and
Well, what I was talking about actually was that you said that he, as reference to his sleeping the second night, he calmed down enough.
actually, no. I think that's why he didn't go to sleep till so late. He was pacing. And then
I'm talking about the second night.
Right.
You were describing in your testimony was, and your words were, he calmed down enough, meaning that he slept better.
Yeah, once he did,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, when you said he calmed down enough, did that mean that he had been like a frenzy from the night before, that next day, and into
Yes,
that night?
yes. I
Would
knew
you
that.
describe it as a frenzy like that he was in when he was attacking you and assaulting you?
A calm frenzy at times, but yes, a frenzy, I would, if I understand you correct.
It was out of the ordinary for him based on what you knew of him?
It was out of the ordinary.
And I believe you indicated that you had been tied up or restrained during this period of this, from the time you were there and attacked on September 11th until September 13th, when you were able to get away from him, right?
Yes.
All right. You weren't restrained all the time.
No.
And this second night that you were there, you described that you were in bed with Shawn and you were sleeping next to him.
Yes.
And I think you said that you were against the wall.
Yes, he always had me against the wall.
All right, in the bed.
Yes.
And he's next to you.
Right.
Okay. And this is when you were able to crawl over top of him? Is that how you got out of the bed?
I had to reach over him to try to find the phone, but I picked up the taser. I had to, I crawled down the length of the bed to get off the bed. I didn't
You
go
didn't
over
crawl
him.
over top of him. You had to move alongside of him down to the end of the bed.
Correct.
And then you were out of the bed.
Right.
And then you made the call for 911.
Yes.
Okay. During the time of these attacks that you've described, did he ever say anything to you or anything in a religious nature while this was going on, or a biblical nature?
I don't really know.
Okay. Did he say, other than a religious or biblical nature, did he ever say anything to you while these attacks were going on?
I don't think so. I think he said he felt led by God to come to Ashland, and he was led to that house. I think that happened during that time.
So he did say some things that were... Had he ever said anything like that before to you?
He did affirm that he believed in God, that he did feel led by God to come to the town. You know.
Did he say he had directions from God, anything like that?
Just in the, vague notion that anybody of faith would, believe that, they would affirm that it's God's leading. I don't know.
That God what?
God is leading.
Is leading?
Yes.
Okay. During the time from the evening of September 11th through the next day, that night, following day, and that night, and that comes early morning, these sexual assaults, did he appear to be obsessed by something or other?
Obsessed?
Yeah.
With sex?
Obsessed by religion?
No.
Under the influence of any drugs?
He smoked pot a lot.
Okay. Had he been smoking pot with you?
No.
So he hadn't smoked pot from the time you and he were together, September 11th.
I never knew him to do drugs before this night, before.
Okay. Didn't appear that alcohol was any influence on him, did it?
No.
Didn't appear that drugs were an influence on him, did it?
No.
Did it appear that he was under the influence of something while he was sexually assaulting you?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you redirect?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused. It's now 1:37 p.m. We will be taking a 1-hour break at this time for lunch. Members of the jury, please be back in the jury room by 2:37 p.m. and we'll continue at that time. Again, please remember the court's admonitions. Don't form any opinions. Don't discuss this case. No conclusions. Court's in recess until 2:37 p.m.